The Lord is my shepherd, I have all I need. Shout with joy to the Lord, all the earth. Make a joyful noise to the Lord. We do love the Psalms, especially the ones we can print and put in a little picture frame to remind us of God's goodness at a glance, or to give us a moment to acknowledge God with a simple nod as we live our lives. We write them on small rocks or on old pieces of wood. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Cast your burden upon the Lord. Or here in the foothills where the Blue Ridge yawns its greatness, I lift mine eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. But not all of them, not all 150 Psalms. What if for your next dinner party, your guests were greeted with Psalm 22 as they came to the door, inscribed below a painting of a beautiful waterfall, maybe a deer in a meadow. If they looked closely, they could read Psalm 22, verse 16. My enemies surround me like a pack of dogs. An evil gang closes in on me. Welcome to our home. I certainly don't mean to minimize the meaningfulness of these pocket psalms. In fact, I want to do just the opposite. We have come to know these as part of our identity. They orient us as we build our faith. These are the very prayers of the people of God, the children of Israel, of Christ himself, who knew these psalms and prayed them in his life. They are our heritage as God's children. But I'm afraid we take only the first steps in utilizing these psalms. Professor and theologian Walter Brueggemann has written that the Psalms guide us through the process of orientation, disorientation, and reorientation as we journey through our life. First, our identity is established. We are oriented around being God's children. We establish who God is, what God has done. We proclaim God's goodness. We sing of God's faithfulness. However, these psalms that we know and love so well can't always work as a genuine expression of our true selves, if we're really honest. Just as earlier we proclaimed our place in God's creation singing Psalm 8, now we look around and see what we have done, how we have broken God's peace. Now we neglect and kill one another. And we need to cry to God, how long? We long to know God's presence, but we simply cannot find God's face among us and on all those who surround us in our daily lives. We live alone and lost, and we need to say to God, out of the deep have I called to you. Lord, hear my voice. These psalms accompany seasons of disorientation or dismantling of the old, when we deal with pain and loss, when all seems to be in disarray. Psalm 137, when the Jewish people were exiled, they sat down and wept. By the waters of Babylon, we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. Psalm 74, when the temple of Israel is in ruin, destroyed by the enemy, the psalmist cries, "O God, why have you cast us out forever? Your foes have roared within your holy place." There are times when these are the words we need to communicate with God, to offer our genuine prayers, our heartache, our fears, instead of our niceties with the divine. Sometimes our lives are knocked off kilter, and we have lost that which we knew and that which held us together. The Jewish people are a people of remembering. Lee Stuckey reminded us of this on Maundy Thursday. The Jewish people ask, What does this remember like? Remembering these times of disorientation is important to the Jews. Remembering when the temple fell. Remembering when every sign and symbol of their faith was destroyed. Remembering when they were disoriented from those very things that establish their identity, that claim their faith. But just as the Psalms don't stop with the orienting songs of joy and praise, nor do they end with the disorientation and disarray. Joining as if in the same breath as the cries for God, the psalmist recalls what God has done, the miracles that God has done. Psalm 105 recites the miracles of Israel escaping Egypt so that we may remember, so that we will know of God's faithfulness. Remember the wonderful works he has done, his miracles to his people. He brought them out of Egypt. He spread a cloud for their covering by day and a pillar of fire by night. They asked, and he brought quails and gave them food from heaven in abundance. He opened a rock, and water gushed out. It flowed through the desert like a river. These are the things that God has done for us. These are the miracles that God is doing, and we can add to that our own list of miracles to celebrate. God has done these things for his people. So we will continue to sing of God's faithfulness, even in days of disorientation, especially in days of disorientation. I will sing a new song to the Lord. I will remember God's faithfulness and be reoriented to God, who has in the past for ages and ages, and I will remember that, God, you will in the days to come. It's fitting to offer these words, this prayer, to our inescapable God, a prayer from Walter Brueggemann. Would you pray with me? We arrange our lives as best we can to keep your holiness at bay, with our pieties, our doctrines, our liturgies, our moralities, our secret ideologies, safe, virtuous, and settled. And then you and your dreams, you and your visions, you and your purposes, you and your commands, you and our neighbors. We find your holiness not at bay, but probing, pervading, insisting, and demanding. And we yield, sometimes gladly, sometimes resentfully, sometimes late or soon. We yield because you beyond us are our God. We are your creatures met by your holiness. By your holiness made our true selves. And we yield. Amen.